What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about planning versus reacting in this crazy car market. Now, we know the car market's insane right now. And today I hope this video helps you figure out what you can do with it in your specific vehicle situation, like whether you have a car right now or you're in a lease right now or your car's aging and you don't know what to do. We're going to talk about a few of those things and hopefully give you some tips on what you can do to start planning for your future instead of reacting to all this crazy stuff we see in the news. Now, if this stuff resonates with you, please feel free to put some of your feedback in the comments and consider subscribing to the channel. We're going to get started right now. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're talking about the car business and we're talking about what you can do to help plan for your future instead of reacting to this stuff that's going on. I talk about this a lot, especially when it comes to buying cars, right? You should always plan them out. Even the day you buy the new car, you should be planning on what your exit strategy is 3 years later. Even if you don't trade every 3 years, the industry average is 30 to 32 months. So in my mind, we should be planning that. And then if you don't have to, better news for you. So let's talk about how we got here, right? We're in the midst of the pandemic and the car prices have gone crazy. Some sources that we're quoting are saying that the car business and the used car market is up 32% compared to where it was last year. We're getting some of this information from TrueCar. The average used car price is $31,676 according to TrueCar, which we think that's pretty high. You know, it's 29% higher than it was a year later. So if you had a car that you purchased a year ago, there's a chance that that car is worth 30% more this year compared to last year. So, you know, if you're in a car right now and you're thinking about what, if you need a car, if you're in the market and you're like, what am I going to do? It could be a scary time right now, trying to figure out exactly what you're going to do to get something purchased for you and your family. So before we go on, let's talk about how we got here. You know, I've been doing this business for 23 years and this is as crazy as I've ever seen it. I mean, I've never actually seen used cars appreciate, except one-off cars, like vehicles that were just so difficult to get that, like, I'll give you an example, a Range Rover Defender. Some of you car aficionados will know what that is. That's one of these types of vehicles that you just don't see very often, and they seem to hold their value forever. Another one would be like a Lexus GX 470, but only specific years, like 2000, I think it was 2016 or 2013, something like that. But those cars seem to always be worth around $23,000. They just never seem to depreciate. They just have such a cult following. The demand is so high for those vehicles that it drives the price up because the supply is so low. So supply and demand, simple economics. This pandemic started a roller coaster ride of craziness with the car business. The first thing we had was the lockdowns. So basically the government shut everything down. And so production stopped for a very long time. You know, and so as they started to come back, people didn't realize that when they turn the switch on the factory, it takes 3 months to make a car. You turn the switch on and it takes 3 months to get a car done. So I didn't know that either until the pandemic. But when I started reading up on it, I was like, man, this is going to really push us back maybe 6 months. That started to happen. And, you know, the pandemic didn't help us. You know, all of the little mandates and all those things just did not help with production. And then you had the microchip problem, you know, which it's just insane how we ever got there. Someone could definitely post a whole video on that, on why we're not doing a lot of semiconductors here, but we're pretty sure it's just pricing. You know, they're cheaper to make overseas, and so they were all in one area in the world where people were making these things, and the pandemic, along with quarantines, along with all the other supply chains that bring them all their pieces, shut that industry down. And they could not finish the cars without those microchips. And you can't really point your finger at just one thing, right? Like, well, the microchips is causing the problem. Well, the microchips are causing one of the problems. You also had a freeze in Texas, which shut down some of the factories that made cushions for seats for some of the manufacturers, which, once again, it's part of the supply chain. When you're building a vehicle, it's got parts coming from all over the place. And I didn't know that either until it happened. And then I tried to order a Tundra, and they were like, man, we don't have the cars. I'm like, why? And we dug into it, and it was because of this freeze in Texas, on top of the microchips, on top of the factory shutdowns, on top of all the different things that were going on. So that's how we got here, to say the least. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can do about it to plan for the future, so you can try to navigate the storm and come out as unscathed as possible. Now, maybe you've heard me say this before when I talk about cars lasting forever. Here's a little bit more data before I go into the solutions for what we're going to discuss here, but I want to point this out. The average time people keep vehicles, I know this in Colorado, I'm not sure about the world, the fact checkers could put that in the comments, but in Colorado is 30 to 32 months. 3 years, guys. So you may be the exception, but the rule that we're seeing based on huge amounts of data is around 3 years. So that means if you purchase a car for $30,000 in 2017, you're going to be trading in 2020. Now, SUVs are going up around 3 to 4% before the pandemic. So if you keep a car for 5 years at 4% price of that new car, it's 20% more in 5 years, right? 5 times 4 is 20. So that was before the pandemic. So if you were waiting for your car to die, and it took 5 years for that to happen, the prices had gone up 20% in that time frame. Right now, it's astronomical. So if it's every year, it's gone up 30%. I mean, it's just so much money right now that it doesn't really calculate. So here's where I want you to take out your pens. Like, this is your plan. You know, you bought a car 4 years ago right now. This could be you. 4 years ago, you bought a vehicle brand new, and you're doing pretty good. You want to keep the car forever. We hear that a lot. You know, maybe you're trying to get 10 years out of it. But this is what the title of the video is about: planning versus reacting. We need to start looking at what could possibly happen and planning for it, instead of waiting for something to happen and then reacting to it. Bars. But anyhow, I had to do that. Oh, I want to leave it in there somehow. But so yeah, like, you don't want to keep just reacting to the situation and keeping yourself a victim to this particular situation that we're in. So think about it like this. You should probably take a look at what a new vehicle will cost you now, if you've had your car 4 or 5 years. That way you can start looking at what those payments are going to be, what you're going to need, right? So you can start looking at the data and going, all right, if I have to get a car right now, even though I don't have a car payment, if I have to get a car right now, it's going to cost me $500 a month. And you can just put that number aside and start thinking about it, and then looking at the insurance and putting all this stuff on a nice spreadsheet for yourself, so that you can calculate how much you're going to have to spend if someone hits your car and totals it. Because that's what we're looking at, right? Like, what if this happens? Because the days of going out and finding a replacement car that's 5 years old, they're not gone, but right now you're going to spend just as much money doing that as getting a new car. And that, to me, is just reacting to the situation. So in order to continue to plan this, we want to make sure we're taking a look at it. Now, that's for the people who own cars for cash. You know, you've paid it off and you're trying to keep it forever, and we don't know when forever is. So basically, we're just simply waiting to react to when that car stops driving. You ever have a friend that says, I'm going to drive this till the wheels fall off? I'm going to drive my car till the wheels fall off. Well, not many people say, well, what are you going to do when those wheels fall off? What are you going to do, right? The simple answer is, I'm going to go buy a car. It's like, okay, do you know how much it's going to cost? Do you know what your payments are going to be? Do you have any idea of what this is going to cost you? And so if you don't know or don't have an idea, then you're just simply reacting to whatever's going to happen when you total that car. We want to make sure that we can plan this and at least have an idea. Like, we might have to spend $500 a month to purchase something if someone hits our car. Let's hope it doesn't happen, but we're planned for it if it does. Got that? That's the first thing. The second thing is to talk about people that are in leases right now. So you've been in a lease for 1 year. We're in the midst of this pandemic. The prices are skyrocketing. I know you're seeing the news, but you're sitting there like, I don't have to do anything. I'm good. And before the pandemic, people will call in like 30 days before the end of their lease, 2 weeks out. I'm ready to get another car, and we'd have them a car within a week and a half. Well, right now you need about 3 months minimum. So what we want to be doing if you're in a lease is, if you are 1 year out, we should be looking at the next possible move and looking at what that inventory chain looks like for the car that you really want. And that way we can tell you, okay, this is likely to happen, or we're going to have to look at some different options. So you don't have to move right then. It's just basically getting this plan put down so that when the time comes, we can execute and make your life nice and smooth instead of running around trying to find whatever you want to drive within 2 weeks when we both know that's probably not going to happen. Now, we talked about cash. That was lease. Third one is people in long-term loans. So let's say you've been in a loan right now. You took out a loan, like a 72-month loan, and you took out that loan 4 years ago. You got 3 years left on that loan, and your car's starting to age. You've got 60, 70,000 miles on it. The golden ticket for me is like less than 80,000 miles, and so the car's at its peak value right now. I would say to you, you might want to look at trading that car right now. Maybe you can get the same payment going into something else. As long as you have the time. It's going to take like 2 months to get the car, or maybe a month. But I would at least investigate it. Like, if I got rid of my car right now because it's worth more than it's ever been worth, could I possibly get into something and have a similar payment that's still under warranty? Or could I get rid of this car right now and get into a lease? That way I don't have to worry about repairs and the vehicle's under warranty. You could do that. So basically I would be at least evaluating these things, or thinking to myself, what am I going to do when I pay this car off? What's going to happen if something happens? I don't want to react. I want to plan this so that it's all good to go when something goes wrong. So listen, guys, I hope I didn't sound like a broken record. I know I often talk about planning versus reacting when we're talking about the car business, but I think it's definitely, if you haven't really stopped and evaluated your situation, even if your car's running fine, I think you might be having some blind spots here, because we don't know what situation you're going to be in if your car gets totaled. So take a look at this, give me some feedback, put it in the comments box, let's talk about it. We can have a good dialogue and ask and answer questions from each other, because I want to learn from this as well. And I hope this video made sense to you. If you have anything you want to reach out to me for, please do. And as usual, if you like the content, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'm Ronnie Haskins. Have a great day.